Welcome to Drinkin Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin Bros, kids. It's a fine Monday afternoon. We have New York Times best-selling author Steven Kotler here. He's here to chat about his new book, The Devil's Dictionary. Steven, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you.
And also with you.
Yeah, I don't. Are you Catholics, Stephen? I don't know.
Are you Catholic, Stephen?
Is that
No, I'm not Catholic. Why?
Well, that's one of the like a challenge and pass in Catholic school. Like, oh, peace be with you, and also with you.
And also with you. I took communion as a child, and then I kind of left it. And then I moved on to like the C&E crowd, like Christmas and Easter, and then I just never did.
Well, you went carb free for a while. It was hard.
Did. I couldn't eat the bread.
The body of Christ.
I could drink the blood, but, you know. Steven, what I really want to talk about with you today is pickleball, okay? Pickleball.
I'm down. You got to first tell me what pickleball is, but...
I listened to you on another show. I listened to you on Aubrey Marcus's show, and he wouldn't shut the fuck up about pickleball. He's been on our show before, so it's fine. I can talk shit about this. I just want you to know, because you're probably not an Austin guy, it's a big sport in Austin. Like, people enjoy playing it. But when you take it that seriously, it's like, dude, it's adult ping pong.
It's also like there's a decent chance Aubrey was on mushrooms for that whole conversation too, right?
Probably, yeah.
So either way.
Yeah, I listened to the show and I thought it was funny, and he just wouldn't stop talking about pickleball with you. And finally, you just said, "Hey, dude, are you having a hard time saying that phrase with a straight face?"
It is actually really fun, though. It's like a mix between ping pong and tennis.
It is.
Like, it's slightly smaller than a tennis court, and you have a bouncier ball with bigger paddles.
Yeah. But I wanted to tell you, like, it wasn't just you on that interview. Like, dude, I don't know why people are taking it this seriously. They've started like a professional league and stuff like that. If an actual tennis player came over to play pickleball, that sport would end in about an hour.
No, there's professional cornhole leagues and shit too.
100%.
So why is that? Why are those two things different?
And
because you play cornhole.
We got to have professional axe throwing at this point.
Yeah.
That's actually a thing.
I think the Vikings did.
I know it is, and I'm sure it started in Austin.
No,
in fact, what I am actually looking for in Austin, because I think this would be good, is if we could, like, the William Tell archery contest on mushrooms. I think it should be an Austin sport.
Are you kidding me?
Maybe with blunted arrows.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just think it's probably. At this point, with Austin, that could just be population management.
That's a good point, too, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to get rid of the homeless if you just put them out there.
You can either you can't vote here for 5 years once you move here, or you got to play the William Tell game.
Yeah.
It's one of the
two. You choose. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You were on the show before. We appreciate you being back here with us on the old Tetherball Academy Media Network. Let's dive into your new book. You're obviously a New York Times bestselling author. I read Stealing Fire. I'm a huge fan of that. Your publicist was super late sending this over, and we're going to throw them under the bus today. Dan was able to read it.
Wow, I skimmed
today. That's their fault. But tell us what made you want to write The Devil's Dictionary.
It's a cyberpunk thriller with climate fiction overtones. It's sort of how. Let me tell you give you a big picture book, a look at it, and then you'll explain it with a twist. So normally you get cyberpunk or you get climate fiction, and these are dour, deeply pessimistic books. What's different about The Devil's Dictionary is it looks at a future world, our world, about 15 years from now, where the big environmental challenges we're up against, climate change, species die-off, those things have been averted. So the question I was asking is, what has to change in society if we're actually going to tackle the really large environmental problems that we face? So that was that was the world I was interested in creating. So you asked what made me sort of want to write this. That was the world I was interested in creating. As part of it, and another part of it is, a number of my books over the years have been about disruptive technology. And when I started writing a book called The Future is Faster Than You Think, which came out 4 years ago with Peter Diamandis, we were trying to look at where all the technologies that were in the world today were going to be over the next 10 years. And it was too hard to like hold in my head for like a nonfiction book, even when we were doing the research. So I started this series by just taking all those technologies, spinning them forward, putting them into the world, and then telling a story within that world. And this is the story I've chose to tell. So that's sort of like a background and the big major themes. And finally, like I started out as a novelist, and so if you're going to give me your time as a reader, it is valuable. Like, you got a million freaking things you could go do, and you're going to sit down and choose to read one of my books. So it's really important for me that whether it's nonfiction or fiction, that my books sort of grab you and don't let go. I love that kind of like can't stop turning pages. I love when that experience happens to me, and I want it to happen for other people. And I've also interested in using fiction to communicate ideas that are harder and bigger than are communicable in nonfiction, right? You can do things in fiction that make it easier to do that. And so how do you communicate really hard ideas, but in a really fun, pulse-pounding, can't stop turning pages, stay up all night way, was sort of the challenge I was trying to solve. And I think, there's 2 books sitting in drawers, and there's 2 other published novels. And I think this is the 5th one. I finally got it right. It took a really long time to figure out how to get there and be able to really do that with fiction. I had an easier time doing it with nonfiction than with fiction.
What did you enjoy more, though, fiction or nonfiction writing? Because I've written both. I enjoy fiction more because it's all up to my own mind and my own creativity.
Yeah, but continuity in fiction is so much harder.
It is.
Right?
It is.
I mean, especially if you're writing a series of books or a longer book. Like it's, he had this hair color here, and I fucked it up here, and now I've got to go back to the edit. Holy shit!
Yeah, and it sucks. Like, because you go through, especially in a series. Yeah. You have to go back to book 1, reread it, bookmark all the pages, and then usually use the search button on old Microsoft Word and go back and find things from the other books where you're like, all right, great, that fell in order for about 4.
That's why a lot of the spy thrillers, like the Mitch Rapp series and even Cars, like when those insert paragraphs that describe the backstory of one of the characters or something like that, it's verbatim every single time.
Oh yeah, and I will tell you, by the way, books was designed as a series, but nobody ever told me the stuff you're talking about. So I have the main character in the book is complicated, not actually that complicated to explain, but complicated to do quickly, and his backstory is complicated. And so I've now got to duplicate that in every book in the series. And I'm sort of mad at myself. I'm like, oh, dude, couldn't you have made it a little simpler on yourself? But the answer to your first question is, I think fiction is more fun. I agree with you, but I will say that, especially in this book, I've had to, I don't know if this phrase is going to mean a thing to you, but I think about it as plot discipline. Well, the problem with fiction is, like, my first novel, I had to start over 4 different times because I didn't mean a tangent I didn't like. You know what I mean? Oh, that's a cool idea. I'll write that. And by the time you get to the end of the book, there's like 7,342 tangents, and you got to somehow wrap that shit up, and it's a mess. So I've discovered that, like, plot discipline, staying as close to the map that I've sort of created, like, I give myself wiggle room to kind of be free and have fun inside the scenes, but where the scene starts and where it's going to end, unbelievable amounts of plot discipline. And I will tell you, to write this thriller, one of the things I did, and you'll probably laugh because you're a writer, is I was so frustrated in not being able to sort of get everything right in Last Tango, even though a lot of people love Last Tango and it was bestseller, people love it. I was not satisfied. I read 150 thrillers between books and mapped out, like, things that I was trying to understand, and, like, learned a bunch of stuff. Like, exposition, if you're writing thrillers, has to go in dialogue.
Yes.
If you put it in, if you put it anywhere, you get a couple paragraphs in the front of the chapter and then dialogue. If you put it anyplace else, slows the shit down. If you have a non-action scene, I discovered after reading 150 thrillers, and you want it to be acceptable in a thriller thing as a page turner, it can only be about a primal need. So you're either, like, flirting or fucking, you're eating or drinking, or you're preparing for action, right? The heist is going to happen, but we're going to gather like, those are the only 3 acceptable non-action scenes if you're writing a thriller. And so I started looking at like really formal structure things plus the plot discipline, and I put them all together to write the Devil's Dictionary, and hopefully it works.
That seems like it would have been a hard thing for you to learn coming out of film first, right? Because expositional dialogue is kind of like a faux pas in film, right? Because so much body language is 80-some% of communication, right? Just nonverbal communication in general.
Unless you're talking about the original Blade Runner, and then there's the voiceover.
The voiceover actually does. You can get away with that pretty easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got lucky in this regard, going from screenplays to books. Steven, I don't know how long you've been writing now at this point.
40 some years.
Okay, so 40 some years. To me personally, I think in the last 10 years or so, writing books has changed, and readers want more dialogue because of the rise of audiobooks. A lot more people, I don't know if you've noticed this, but audiobooks. Oh,
that's interesting. I mean, I've noticed there as an audiobook. I haven't noticed an impact on readers, but that kind of makes sense. It's smart.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I huddled up with my agents, and I said, look, because they'd always asked me to write books, and I'd sold a bunch of screenplays, and I was like, that's fine. But what if we added more dialogue in there? And they were like, look, we think that's where the future of this is going. Not only because people want to read dialogue, and reading action sequences and everything else is super tedious because you have to explain it all, colors, shapes, everything that's going on in the background and scenes and all that stuff. But for the translation of the audiobook, which has risen so high now, we had Malcolm Gladwell on the show. He talked about the same thing, where more people are listening to audiobooks than are actually reading his books now. Yeah. So my writing changed.
I think you said 70%.
For that. Yeah.
70% was now audiobook, which is crazy.
I'll put it this way. My last one was 60-40. It was.
I think that's about where I am too.
Yeah.
60-40. It depends on which book, right? Because you go to the older books, obviously it's text dominant, and then it starts to shift. But it got. I think when I noticed the shift. I'll tell you this will tell you everything you need to know about this. You could negotiate audio deals with you could negotiate the terms of audio deals more flexibly with your publisher up to about 4 years ago, and then they started to notice. Right? Then they were like, "Oh, wait a minute."
Yeah, and a bunch of people left. Malcolm Gladwell came on and said, "Look, I started my own audio company.
Yeah.
I don't have an agent or a manager anymore."
Altucher did the same thing. He did his first one with a company, and then he was like, "I'm just going to self-publish from now on."
Yeah. Any thought to that in the future? Because you have such a massive fan base. Why not take all of the money instead of giving it to a publisher or an agent?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't even send us the book ahead of time.
Yeah. So. You ever thought about that? I'm sure if your agent listens to this, he's going to be like, no, I'm super important. If I don't give you this note, show don't tell, you're never going to fucking complete the novel.
Agents is sort of different conversation with me, because I had one agent that I shifted from after my first book, and I've been with the same dude essentially for a very long time. And I wanted to find, every agent I've ever dealt with, whether it's Hollywood and or books, until I got to this guy, all they do is just blow smoke. And I'm just like, guys, I'm trying to make steering decisions. I don't want fantasy best case scenarios. I want reality level talk to me. And my agent is an old school New York publisher, and he's editor. We started out as an editor, and he just, he's a cranky New Yorker, doesn't ever lie. And he was with me when my books were making almost no money. So in some, loyalty matters to me. So he rode with me for a very long damn time. So he gets to continue to ride with me, in my opinion, until he totally fucks something up, basically. But as far as, the publisher stuff, I've thought about it a lot. I believe, and a lot of people can fucking hate me on this, but I came up as a journalist, and I working for magazines and newspapers, and I came up, as a writer. And I think it's good to have a filter. I think I like the fact, yes, the publisher takes a shitload of money, and they're a pain in the ass and a whole bunch of stuff, but they're also they're a first level of filter. And if you publish a book with St. Martin's or Harper Wave or, the houses I'm with, I know it's going to be a good book. And, I got a whole shelf of my friends, semi-talented folks, self-published books. And they're nowhere near the standard of what I see coming off publishers' list. So like I'm interested in that filter. I think it's useful. I don't love how the system works, and I'd like to move it around, but it serves a useful function. And we can see this from the internet right now. When you don't have those sort of filters in place, it gets more complicated.
Yeah,
I would just say.
But Steven, have you looked at the numbers at all? Just
I know.
Taking a little peek, see at the numbers. I'll throw some out for you if you want, because I just got my last residual chart from Penguin. $1.50 for audiobooks, making $7 off of Audible, self-published. Hardbacks, making about $2 off of those, making about $8 self-publishing. And I mean, it's paperback, not even close, making close to 10 per copy off of that. And it's just a whole different world where I'm like, oh my God. Now we're fortunate because, Dan and I own a media company where we can record the audiobooks and everything else here. But a lot of people can't do that, and I understand that, but the margins are so much bigger when you do it on your own that it's...
Well, I will tell you, the thing that really caught my attention in this conversation is the taking control of my audio stuff. Because that stuff is a no-brainer, and I can record that in a studio just fine.
I mean, we've recorded a couple of them just using, and look, we obviously do media for a living, but it's not hard to find people like us and get in a soundproof room with decent microphones. All the stuff you need to buy to do a good audiobook, except for the editing.
Oh no, I mean, the last time I did one, it was at a small NPR recording studios in Santa Fe. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just chose them because it was my buddy on the other side of the glass, and I liked him. So when I was, done talking to the microphone, I could go outside and chill with him. And that was why I worked there. You know what I mean? But it was just me in a soundproof room for 8 days.
I had a guy on my first book. It was Simon & Schuster. And they put me in this place. I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. They put me in this place that was behind a Christian bookstore. And it was a local musician who he was probably 58 years old. He was in a Jimmy Buffett cover band on the weekends, and he would play in Myrtle Beach. But he ran this recording studio during the week. So he goes, look, man, I can do this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But
Thursday through Friday, man, it's cheeseburger in paradise.
100%. That's what he said. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, man, this gig in Myrtle Beach. And I go, just out of curiosity, how much you making down at this gig in Myrtle Beach? And he's like, it's not about the money, man. I just enjoy it, and I get laid a lot. And I was like, he's like, I'm 58 years old. I need all the help I can get. And I was like, all right, cool, man. I guess I'll see you next week. So it was over the course of a split 2 weeks that I recorded with this guy. Simon & Schuster paid this fucker a lot of money. And I was like, all right, yeah, why couldn't I do this on my own at this point? It was pretty funny.
The audiobook, though, you've done well. Like you have... I would say it's probably atypical for somebody to write in 3 different genres on a regular basis, right?
It's impossible.
Are you talking to me or you?
You. He writes.
Oh, you me?
You. Yeah. But you used Fred Sanders for some of your serious stuff. He's a legit dude. And then what's the dude's name? Vincent Anderson. I think he does James Patterson's books, the action thrillers as well. The guy that did this book, actually, I think. Is it him? Yeah, Ryan Vincent Anderson. Yeah, he's good too. How do you is it the publisher that sets it up, or do you go out and look? Do you have a voice in mind in your head?
In terms of
like reading the audiobook.
Oh, reading the audiobook? Yeah. I don't think I would for my fiction. So I work with the same editor for 25 years. He's my best friend. He's my own editor. I work with the editors that the publishers provide too, and some of them are talented and some less so, but I have my own guy. And one of the things we do is he reads everything I write back to me. So I've been listening to this guy read my stuff so if I was going to do fiction, he would do it. Also because I have a lot of characters who are West Indian and, speak in Rasta accents or various things. And my editor is West Indian. Oh, he's from Guyana. So he can do stuff with his voice that I actually can't do. I know I get the accents right in the books because, I'm working with the people who I'm quoting, but there's stuff in that, like, it's really funny when they do the audiobooks of my novels, I get pages of, how do you pronounce this? How do you pronounce this? How do you pronounce this? What is this? What is this? Because I have one character who's, one of the lead characters is Scottish. And whenever she gets pissed, she, swears in, Scottish curse words. And like half the reason I created her is Scottish curse words are the greatest things in the universe. And to like get to put them in a character's mouth is really fun. But don't ask me to pronounce that shit.
Yeah, is it like Finnish, where if you didn't grow up speaking that shit, it's impossible to do it, or what?
No, it's with the Scottish stuff, you have to be willing to say out loud, like, the insults are so rude. Like, you have to be able to like get stuff out of your mouth that is so much worse than what we say in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is it like Australia, where they just call everybody cunts, and based on what's in front of cunt, it's good or bad?
Yeah. I mean, tongue my fart box, you bloody wank stain is a really common insult, right? Tongue my fart box, you bloody wank stain. So like stuff like that, you got to be able to do that with feeling, and not everybody can do that.
I'm into it.
Sorry, guys.
No,
I'm into
that's
it.
important.
That's
Tonguing my fart box.
Tongue my fart box.
In the proper accent is really important, and I'm sure that's what's going to make you
vault
to the top of the bestseller list.
The other thing that is important to me about like my books, especially Devil's Dictionary, all of my books are funny. It is a question of like, how deeply subculture do you have to be to understand the humor, right? Last Tango, you had to like pretty much grow up as like a punk rocker in a certain to really get all the humor. But with Devil's Dictionary, I've made it like it's taken a long time to try to like figure out where exactly is like a much more mainstream audience and aim the humor in that direction. And Devil's is the first one there. So like reading wise, timing is going to really matter a lot because there's a lot of funny in that book.
Is there any celebrity that you would ever write? Like the biography for?
Oh, I have thought for a while about, it's not a celebrity, but Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow psychology, passed away last year. We partnered with Mike's organization, Fligby, before he passed. We were going to do a bunch of work together, and I had hoped at some point to be able to ask him if I could write his biography. And because most people know him as like the godfather of flow. They don't realize he was like one of the keener kind of minds of the 20th century on everything from like the philosophy of consciousness through creativity, through a whole bunch of stuff. And he had a crazy life, just absolutely nuts life. So his biography has sort of spoken to me a little bit. I haven't really there's nobody celebrity wise who fascinates me enough, I think, for that. Yeah, I would jump in for an article, even a long one, but I don't know. Neil Strauss is a friend of mine, and he loves that. You know what I mean? He'll jump in and, write 300 words about 300 pages on Kevin Hart. And I can see the value. Like you would gain so much in that experience and learn so much. The only time I will say I have one regret is that 30 years ago, Laird Hamilton asked me if I wanted to write a book together.
Oh, shit.
And I knew if I wrote a book with Laird, like Laird's just, especially that, I wasn't, I was an up and comer, and it would be Laird's book and I'd be his ghostwriter. And I didn't want that. And I didn't want that in my career. And I didn't ever really want to do that. So I said no, but I knew that if I'd come out the other end of that book with Laird, I'd be an amazing surfer. And that was like, I don't have many regrets. That's one of them. Like getting to write a book with Laird would mean I'd be surfing with Laird every day for a year or two. And there's no way to come through that gauntlet, not a better surfer.
God damn, dude. You really blew it with that one, Steven.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Shit.
Not as bad as the publisher blew it by not sending us the book.
It's true, yeah. Or the publicist.
Laird Hamilton and Matthew McConaughey and you on mushrooms. And you just write that. That's the story. Whatever happens, you just write it down. I think I would probably read that shit.
So by the way, Laird and Matthew would be really interesting together. Actually.
Yeah,
they would really get along.
Yep.
And that'd be a fun. I'd go on that surf trip.
Well, I think Laird is clean living though, right? He doesn't.
Laird. Well, it depends on what year we're in when we are. Sometimes very clean.
I'll buy the DMT. As a matter of fact, I don't need to buy it because I've already got all of it.
Yeah, you've already got it on you. You're fine.
I'll supply that. You write it, and then I just want to listen to those two dudes talk for a couple of hours.
Yeah, I watched a thing on Sundance Channel. They used to do this thing called I think it was called Iconoclast.
Iconoclast.
Yes.
Iconoclast.
And it
I
was
remember
Laird
that.
Hamilton and Eddie Vedder. Did you watch that one?
Shit.
No.
So,
but Eddie's a surfer.
Yes.
That I know.
Yeah, and they're friends, and they go out. He likes surfing with Laird, much the same way that you just described. Of like, dude, you're going to be a better surfer if you're just hanging out with Laird all the time.
I remember. So when I was in New Zealand, it was really funny. There was a break I wanted to check out, and they wouldn't let me go check it out. And I was like, we're sick of rescuing gringos out there. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, yeah, Eddie Vedder was here like 2 weeks ago, and he got caught way the fuck outside, and they had to rescue him with like a helicopter or something along those lines. I don't know if it's true or not. But I remember that from being in New Zealand. They were like, yeah, we're done with the Americans at that break. You guys you're not surfing that anymore.
So they say,
they're like, okay.
They say gringo in New Zealand? Is that their word? It's not like howley
They
in
don't
fucking
say
Hawaii?
gringo. They say
honky.
I don't remember what.
Honky.
Honky.
It's not howley,
Can't
right? That's only Hawaii.
No,
That
that's Hawaii.
Yeah. But
There's got to be a word for it.
I don't know I can't remember what the Kiwi word for an American is.
Kiwi word.
Either way, here's the beauty of Laird Hamilton. At the end of this thing with Eddie Vedder, the first half of it is them hanging out at Laird's house. He's teaching him how to surf. Eddie Vedder is kind of humble about it, where he's just like, "Oh, I'll never be as good as Laird," whatever, right? And then the second half of it is Eddie is playing a show. And Laird comes down to the show. Well, Laird shows up to the concert backstage, and he's fucking drenched. I mean, head to toe in sweat, drenched. And Eddie's like, "Hey, man, what's you want to take a shower or something? What happened to you?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I rode my bike here because I wanted to earn this concert." And Eddie's like, "Where did you bike from?" And he named the location or whatever. And he goes, "Man, isn't that like 65 miles away?" And he goes, yeah, it is. And I biked all the way down here just because I wanted to enjoy this. And I wanted to feel like I earned the concert and to watch you play since I'm backstage. And, he showered there backstage and watched the concert. You're like, what the fuck, bro? He really lives that life.
Yeah, so I mean, I've known Laird for a lot of years, a really long time at this point, and Gabby as well, and really like them. And Laird's sort of been he's come into my life at very key points and had, a bit of an influence along the way. But I even like back in the day, journalists used to tell stories about like early back in the day about like having a Laird Hamilton assignment. Early action sports assignments were dangerous. Like I helped start a magazine called Freeze. That was the first sort of extreme ski magazine, free skiing and park skiing and all that stuff. There was not a writer on staff at Freeze who did not end up with PTSD after going on a trip with a professional skier or a snowboarder. And that was what like trying to cover early action sports was like. And Laird was famous for it because he liked to do activities with journalists, and 3 activities in a given day is enough is what you do with Laird. And activities would be like 2-hour surf session, 2-hour session in the gym, 2-hour mountain bike ride. And like, that's every day for Laird, average day.
My God.
And, I remember I got through the second activity and they wanted to go mountain bike riding. I was like, dude, I'm done. I'm out. Like we've like been working really hard for like 4 or 5 hours already. Like, no, man, like you go on your mountain bike ride. I'm like, I am not able to do that. No.
Yeah, he lives that life, and he's married to Gabrielle Reese, the professional volleyball player, and the two of them have children that I'm assuming will start our new civilization.
Yeah,
whatever happened?
It's the born children.
Yeah,
they have the born children.
Whatever happened to the Andre Agassi, Steffi Graf kid? Is it like taking over villages yet and murdering people, or is it playing tennis? Or
they're pretty private. You don't hear much about those kids.
You would think that kid's got some pretty good genetics.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, maybe not great hair, but
for a little bit.
That was a wig.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Come on, Andre Agassi had a wig. Let's be real.
I don't know if he wigged up. Did Agassi wig up?
Oh yeah, he totally wigged up. You kidding me?
His kid, Andre Agassi's kid, plays baseball for USC.
No shit.
No shit.
For the Trojans.
Wow.
That's a good squad.
It is.
Jaden Agassi.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, they named him Jaden, huh?
Man, just like Will Smith.
Yeah, well.
No, You know,
We'll get.
yeah.
We'll circle back on that one.
I want to
change
know
it.
who was there first. Can we get some research on that? I want to know who was Will or Agassi.
Well, Jaden Smith is younger than that. He's not in college yet, right? Isn't he like 17?
No, I think he's older. He's one of those ones that looks small, you know, and you're
He's
just like,
23.
oh, yeah.
So maybe it was Will Smith. Will Smith should sue Andre Agassi. I mean, they both have
over celebrity baby names.
Yeah, and they both have issues with hair.
I'm sure they tried to trademark each other's baby names too. It was just like, hey, dude.
Like Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to trademark "you're fired." Like, you know how many times that word was said before you even existed on Earth? But you guys at Ohio State tried to trademark the word "the,"
And
so
we
fuck
earned
off.
it.
No, you didn't.
we earned it. We deserved it. We should have gotten that trademark. It didn't go through.
Dumb.
Who else do you hang out with? I feel
Ohio State.
No,
University.
Goddamn right.
no,
Thank you.
no.
Thank you.
That's all right. I am a University of Wisconsin Badger.
Oh, there.
Are you really? Congratulations.
I am.
Big Ten. Big Ten. I actually picked them to win the tournament this year, and they
Penn.
let me down.
I'm a Nittany Lion myself.
Yeah, this
Really?
is an all Big Ten show too.
Can I ask? The only thing I want to know is what exactly? I've never asked this, but what the fuck is a Nittany Lion?
I have no idea.
What is a Nittany?
It's not in the freshman orientation packet. I wish it would have been.
It's something that your grandmother makes. You know, it's kind of the same material as a shawl. And
oh, okay.
No,
Yeah.
that's not it.
Yeah, it is.
It's an
It's a
eastern.
little-
It's an eastern mountain lion.
you don't
So it's
say.
a mountain lion that cruises around up in the Northeast, I guess. I
Okay.
don't know.
All right.
There aren't even real.
Is it a subspecies?
It has to be.
Own species? Got to be a subspecies.
It's got to be a
gotta be, yeah.
subspecies.
It's a mountain lion or cougar. Yeah, so it's just a type of mountain lion.
All right.
They roamed the State College area back in 1880 until they probably murdered all of them.
Yeah, they had to slaughter all of
build
them.
the school. Yeah,
But at least they named the mascot after him. Like that's a nice thing.
that's what we do in America. We wipe out something and then we name sports teams after it.
Who else do you roll with, Kotler?
Look at his face.
Look at his face.
Switch to
Get
him.
to his face. Who is running it back there today? They're slow. Get these reactions.
Oh my God.
Hey, I'm not the one that did it. I'm just
Kotler,
reporting the facts.
that's all we're doing, dude. We're just reporting the facts.
Reporting the facts here, brother.
That's all we're doing. Who else do you hang out with? I feel like you're one of those New York guys that everybody wants to party with and go have dinners with. Like, you seem like a fascinating dinner guest.
So, first of all, what makes you think I live in New York? First
Are
of all,
you not?
I live in the middle of frickin' nowhere outside of in Nevada in the mountains. I live in the middle of nowhere in the
nice.
mountains of northern Nevada.
That's quite a bit better.
Yeah, I don't live anywhere near a big city. And I'm a misanthropic introvert. So what possibly would make you think I'd go to dinner with people?
Oh, man, I did not know. The way you carry yourself and you're hanging out with Laird Hamilton and shit, I thought, this is a fucking New York guy right here.
No, I'm an action sport athlete. Like, I surf, I ski. I like the people I know. I either work with you or usually I hurl myself down mountains at high speeds with you.
You hang out with like Cam Hanes and shit. He's a good one to do that with. If you want to go run 260 fucking miles.
Yeah.
I'm a gravity athlete. I ski. I
I
downhill
see.
mountain bike. I like to go very, very fast.
What about Shaun White? If Shaun White asked you to write his biography, would you do it?
No, not Sean. Sorry, Sean. But
I'm
like
saying it without saying
not gonna. Sorry, Jesus.
You got something
Sorry,
against
that just
redheads,
happened.
or you just hate Shaun White?
Yeah, he's just anti-ginger. That's what
I don't hate Sean White, and I've got nothing against redheads. But Sean White sort of brought jock-style competitive tactics, attitude, etc., into action sports, and it wasn't like it was a shift. And I'm not good or bad. He changed it, and I'm just the generation before. I'm an old school punk rocker. Like when I came into action sports, it was like punk rock fuck ups from Tahoe.
Yeah,
who were at
like
the center.
yeah, like TJ and fucking Dave Mira and shit like that. Back
Yeah.
in the day and back,
Yeah, so like that was the generation I came up with, the Shane McConkeys of the world, and so like I love the fact that action sports, that real athletes like have started to move in. Not that we weren't real athletes, but like it's fun to see that because it pushes the level up. But it's not my thing. It's not how I approach the sport.
What's your summer sport? Like, I mean, skiing is skiing, right? But what do you?
I'll ski up into July. I'll ski from like late November through July. Because I'll go up to Mount Hood and ski up there and things like that. But I was a downhill mountain biker forever, but I had so many season-ending injuries.
going over the handlebars and shit.
I've just broken too many goddamn bones with downhill mountain biking. And it's not that I don't do it anymore, but I don't do it full out. And I'm still, it hasn't been solved because I stopped DH riding about three years ago at like a really serious level. And I haven't found a substitute.
Well,
yet.
I mean, you can always go vertical. Start jumping out of planes.
Never too late to go vertical.
I think I'm going to go back to rock climbing. I was a rock climber for a really long time, and I sort of went away from it when I moved to the ocean because surfing is just way more fun. But I like it, and it's challenging and interesting, and you don't have to fly into dirt at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, no shit. Well, you wrote in Stealing Fire, you cataloged a few of those squirrel suit guys that I can't remember the one dude's name, but there's that
JT Holmes.
Yeah.
He's the one that tried to go through the eyelet and smash into the side of it, right?
Oh no, that's Dean who died.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Richard Ryan, one of our buddies, who's one of the co-founders of Black Rifle, he was good buddies with him too. He squirrel suits with, I mean, all those guys. It's a pretty small group
community.
Of
It's funny because I'm really drawn to it, and we're doing some really interesting work with a VR company, the same VR company that built the Void in Santa Monica. They have a new VR setup called the Jump, and it's a squirrel suit VR setup, and we're doing all kinds of flow research with them. And so the VR version, yes, I'd love to squirrel suit, but the odds of
dying
are so astronomically high, and I take so many chances sort of skiing. If I end up with a terminal illness, that is when I'm going to be squirrel suiting. Like that's like I'm going to move into the skydiving place. Just like, okay, let's just keep going until either I die or I'm squirrel suiting.
Yeah. I like that a lot. By the way, your nod to action sports of how it used to be different. I just watched a documentary last night on Tony Hawk on HBO. I don't know if you got a chance to see it yet.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's great, but it really documents what you were talking about and that change from the punk rock guys who were just, smoking cigarettes, fucking shit up to, we're actually winning money, touring around the world, and this is a whole different lifestyle.
A lot of those dudes were making pretty good money before. I mean, like TJ Lavin made pretty good money.
Decent enough.
No, a lot of them definitely made money. Shaun White definitely changed the game in terms of sponsorship, right? He figured out some stuff. But it was more like the whole point in action sports, especially in the 90s, was it was no longer about competition. Like it wasn't the fastest guy or girl to the bottom wins, which is what skiing had been forever. Yeah, it was like the most creative, innovative line wins, and it became very cooperative, right? You were trying to work together so everybody could do that and not competitive. And if you spend time with racers, like they're not talking to each other, they're not friends, they're hardcore athletes competing against one another wanting to win, and that wasn't what was going on in action sports. It was much more collaborative, expression session, and judging was something that happened because people wanted to get paid, and then you could get paid, but it wasn't taken super seriously. And then it shifted. And I'm not saying better or worse, but like Shaun was part of that shift. And I'm old school, and I'm still in it for the creativity much more than the competition.
Got it. Did you watch the Winter Olympics?
The skiing and a couple other things, for sure.
What do you think about that? Where the sport is headed and these other countries picking off athletes? Because that Gu chick, I forget her name. Is it
Eileen?
Eileen, yeah. Eileen Gu, she skied for China this year, won a couple gold medals. She's clearly from America.
We've seen it before, but it was usually people who weren't necessarily good enough to qualify in whatever their home country is. And they
right.
But she was clearly good enough to qualify anywhere she was going to go, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious your thoughts on that, because I noticed in the snowboarding section, because I watched it, Louis Vito had switched over to Italy because he wasn't good enough to make the American team.
That's the more common version of that.
Yeah.
Is that somebody's not necessarily good enough to make, and it's not always American. It's like England soccer team, right? Mm-hmm. People that have been recent immigrants over the last 30 or 40 years, they go back to their home country and play. That's not uncommon, but it is uncommon for somebody that's elite.
Yeah.
So two things about Eileen that I can say. One, last summer. So have you ever skied in a terrain park?
Once, briefly. It's
okay.
it's very difficult. It's very rough on your knees.
It's very difficult, very rough on your knees. But if you ski in a terrain park, you can end up like it's a loop, right? You'll like ski through the park and to the chairlift, and skiers and snowboarders will drop one every 15 seconds. So like if you're moving at speed, you're going to move with the same pack throughout the day unless you stop. So I was at Mammoth skiing last year ago May, and Eileen was there training, and for an entire day, I was either right behind her or right in front of her going through the park. And you want to talk about like frickin' intimidating? Doesn't matter what I was trying, because she's like over there doing crazy Olympic caliber stuff, like right next to me the whole time. Totally intimidating. And a beautiful skier to watch in person. And what I think about, so from an athletic competitive Olympics, all that stuff, whatever outside of this, Eileen and competing for China, I don't have an opinion. I really don't. I haven't even thought about it. What I do know is that China is a giant market, and it's great for skiing. Skiing is an amazing sport, and park skiing is an amazing sport. And Eileen just brought so many more people to this sport. And so for that, like, deeply grateful, like mad respect. That was really cool. And China has been more active in the ski world. They've partnered with certain ski companies. They've been doing stuff. And so from an international relations, what's best for the sport, I'm good with that.
Got it. Yeah. I watched her. I was impressed. Is one of the few female athletes, in my opinion, who was so great that you didn't notice the difference between men's and women's that much and what she could do. And she completely blew the field away if you watched it. I mean, it wasn't even close.
The new generation of the younger generation of women skiers is astounding. Like astounding. Eileen's sort of at the pinnacle, and she's the one who's visible now. But if you're inside the sport and what we're watching, women in action sports in general are the next 5 years is just going to be amazing, because like the up and comers are so unbelievably good. It's cool.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. I still enjoy the Olympics. The ratings weren't great this year, but hopefully it'll continue on. NBC's got billions of dollars riding on it, so we'll see. It'll be fun. They're coming back to Los Angeles as well. We'll flip out of sports here for a second and go into. I want to talk about creativity. I was at a dinner party a couple weeks ago. Do you know Jonathan Levy? He hosts this thing called the Influencers Dinner. He wrote a book he wrote a book called You're Invited. And he invites 12 different people of different backgrounds. You're not allowed to say your name. You make a meal together, and then you sit down, and then after you reveal who you are, everybody gets to take a guess. And then you reveal who you are, and then you get to chat about it afterwards. Well, the topic of creativity came up at this dinner, and whether or not it can be harnessed, or if you get writer's block or anything else like that. I had asked the question because I don't believe in writer's block at all. I don't believe that. I believe if you're creative and you're naturally creative, you should be able to harness it and use it whenever you want. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I've spent a good portion of my career studying creativity. Obviously, it's a huge part of peak performance. 1/4 of the art and possible. The book I was on last time I was on your show, we were talking about, is devoted to creativity and how to train it. And with writer's block, so I do a class called Flow for Writers. And with writer's block, I always tell people this: you have your brain does pattern recognition automatically. The linking of like with like, right? The matching of things together. Every neuron in your brain does that automatically.
Yeah.
And your brain is also, by design, a goal-directed machine. So if you give your brain a start and an ending, it will automatically fill in the gap. That's what pattern recognition, it'll connect those two. I don't think writer's block. So I think writer's block can be possible if you don't know your starts to your endings. if your style if you don't have the right voice for what it is that you're writing, can be a problem. Or sometimes I think there are 3 causes to writer's block: is you haven't figured out the right voice for the piece, you don't know your starts or your endings, and or you haven't done enough research. And for example, in my writing, I always when I work with my editor, the first thing we do is make sure my writing isn't boring, arrogant, or confusing. And each of those are a tell. If my writing is arrogant, meaning I'm dropping lots of fancy words all over the place, it's usually I haven't done enough research. And at an unconscious level, I'm trying to cover that up with fancy language because somewhere my brain doesn't want to do the research, right? It wants to keep going. It doesn't want to stop and take 2 weeks and figure something out. So I'll try to cover it with fancy language. So I'll start, usually it's my editor who knows. He's like, dude, you're using a lot of big words in these sentences. Are you sure you know exactly what you're talking about yet? And if my writing is boring, I usually haven't found the right style, the right voice. So it's not coming off with like enough pace and flavor. And if it's confusing, I usually don't know my starts and my endings because I don't know where I'm going. There's no fucking map, so I'm going all over the place. And those are my tells. So like that, and this is, I don't know if other people have those same tells. I don't assume that at all, but I do think those are the 3 most common causes of it. And the research one is about laziness, right? Everybody wants to have the book done, or there are people who over-research the stuff. I think I've seen that too. The starts and the endings. Usually I think that I hear that from people who they like the high of creativity. They're like, oh my God, I don't know where the words are going to take me. And they feel that can be too constricting. I think it's sort of a limit that kind of liberates. But I think if you maintain those kinds of things, writer's block is a myth. Now you can certainly get locked in the struggle phase of flow, right? The onboarding stage of the state, and not have. I think that what people also call writer's block is like non-flow writing. Like they think that every time they sit down, they forget it's a fucking job.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. And you got to wake up and you put the words together in a straight line, and they're going to look ugly probably the first 30 times through until you edit them. You know what I mean? I think people say I've got writer's block. What they really mean is I'm locked out of flow and I have to actually work for the words. And those are different things, right? Like the job is to work for the words. Flow is something that happens as a byproduct of that, not the other way around.
It's, in simpler terms, you're saying that structure can be instrumental in creativity. That might seem counterintuitive to people who do creativity just for the creativity's sake, but it makes sense. Like you have to know the language to use the words in the first place, right?
Yeah, Miles Davis, not Miles Davis. Oh God. Charlie Mingus once said, you got to, and then Mingus was the wildest improvisation guy out there, but he was like, look, man, you got to know the notes before you can improv on the notes.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, let's say you're somebody that's writing, whether it's a novel, nonfiction, a script, a proposal for your business or something like that, building the structure, right? Understanding the underlying facts, and then understanding what tone you're trying to communicate, and then making sure that you've got a clear beginning and end, right? Seems like a pretty good way to solve that issue. You know what I mean? Like you're going back to the basics essentially, but it opens up your creative mind. It's almost like the shower principle, right? You distract your prefrontal cortex and let the rest of your brain do what it's supposed to be doing, but you can't do that if you don't have the underlying structure. Yeah,
in fact, underlying structure, and you haven't done enough research, to have the shower phenomenon that you just talked about, right? That flow's release phase. Take your mind out of the problem, prefrontal cortex shuts off, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of research, and it's been growing. A woman named Colleen Seifert sort of started looking at this. She was at the University of Michigan, another Big Ten. Person.
Yeah, but we don't like them.
No,
I don't think
don't like them.
Nobody likes Michigan. Right?
Yeah.
Like most Ohio State people don't really care about Penn State and vice versa. And in Wisconsin, we don't really care about that either, but everybody hates Michigan.
Yeah, the only thing that saved Michigan was Will Smith for Juwan Howard. Like now everybody forgets that he slapped a player, you know?
That's true, yeah.
So you're welcome. Cut to Steven again. Anytime there's an awkward face, we've got to have that on camera for the rest of your
It's awkward face. This is just me laughing. I'm just like trying not to like burst out laughing out loud. I'm just sort of like, I'm like, you know, I'm like that shit is funny.
I want to bring that back though to this book that you wrote.
All right, Devil's Dictionary.
Yeah.
Part of the purpose I've seen it. I think I saw it in the press and the presser for this, and I think I saw it in some of the reviews as well for people that have read the book cover to cover. A lot of the purpose in writing this book was elucidating some of these issues with conservationism, especially, and positing solutions in a sci-fi world that might actually benefit the real world. Now, that might seem like a heavy lift or an odd connection to make, but sci-fi solved quite a few problems and led to quite a bit of innovation over the years, like the internet and smartphones and rockets and helicopters and the submarine and organ transplants. Like all of those things originated in sci-fi. So it's not really that much of a stretch.
Yep.
I think, you know, there's a Bible quote that I think we talked about in Abundant, where there's no vision, people perish.
Right.
You got to be able to see the future. You got it right. You have to be able to see the world that you're trying to create. And, you know, the idea is...
That's another form of that structure you're talking about, a clear, like a beginning state and a desired end state, right? It's the same.
A desired end state. And so, you know, there's been, in the Devil's Dictionary, this is a world where mega linkages, for example, have already come into existence. What's a mega linkage? We learned back in the 70s, basically, that so they were studying populations on islands, right? And one of the things that happens on an island is populations are really vulnerable to so-called extinction events. You're living on an island, you got a small group of critters, right? And a volcano erupts and kills off half of them. Suddenly the genetic diversity of the critters shrinks to the point that they're all inbreeding. So within a couple generations, the line dies out. That's an extinction event. But what this guy, Michael Soule, sort of the father of conservation biology, figured out is, holy crap, if you're a snake, a 4-lane highway puts you on an island, right? Snakes are preyed upon from above by birds. They won't crawl across a road if they can avoid it. So for plants and animals, suburbs become prisons and things like that. So he started to realize that habitat fragmentation was a real problem for protecting species, among other things. And it was sort of the birth of the conservation movement. Mega linkages is the idea of taking all the national parks in America, for example, and connecting them. So you would have, they've been trying to do this in the center of the country, linking up Yellowstone to Yukon. And all they want is one contiguous, like wild animals can go who migrate 500 miles or whatever from one point to the other unbroken. So and this is not new, and it's been around since the 70s.
Yeah, they've been talking about building this over like huge highway intersections and shit where deer get hit a lot.
So
just building a land bridge over.
You've seen the land bridges over highways and things like that. And this is all happening, right? I mean, this is whether you want to take about the UN's conservation plan or wherever, like these are all been in place. In fact, the U.S. Defense Department, migration corridors and mega languages of these things, like back in the 90s, they started to put these things outside of military bases for various reasons. It was easier for them, rather than fighting environmental lawsuits, it was easier for them to work with the environmentalists, and the Defense Department has become really a great ally on some of this stuff. Most people don't know that, actually, but there's neat stuff that way. But the migration corridors, I wanted to show people what it would look like if you had a world where these things were really real and those sorts of things. So you know what I mean? So we could see what that looks like. And that was part of what's going on in Devil's Dictionary. And at the heart of Devil's Dictionary, there's obviously a thriller mystery. You see these two competing sort of billionaire types who are each trying to create mega linkages in their own image. So like creating a giant national park mega linkage becomes the next billionaire thing to do in the world.
Instead of trying to create rockets to go to Mars.
Rockets to go to Mars. It just becomes the next thing that like, conservation gets tied to like billionaire ego and stuff. And by the way, like that's already happened, right? You saw, I'm gonna blank his name, the founder of Esprit, Doug Thompson, went down to Chile and bought up a huge and created a mega linkage, right? It was a big controversy when he created a national park that ran clear across Chile, and then turned it over to the government. But like, that's an example of this happening. So it's not even, unusual. I just rolled it forward into the future and turned up the volume.
Well, it makes sense though. I mean, we're already talking about food shortages and shit right now. And, there's a number of different ways that an environment that has animals that we eat, for example, could get fucked up. And when that happens, the animals that we eat don't exist anymore. And now we're eating bugs and shit. You know what I mean? That's not something that I want.
Bugs would be a good thing to be eating, by the way. There's great protein there. That certainly should be in the future of our protein sources.
I just had a cricket bar. There's a guy on one of our hosts on our network on Giggle Boys, Eli.
Golden Cricket, yeah.
Golden Cricket.
.com.
GoldenCricket.com.
It tastes good.
It tastes good.
Yeah.
It's made of crickets, this bar. And initially you're like, oh man, I don't know. And when you eat it, you don't notice the difference, to be honest.
Yeah, but having resilience is all about having multiple options to solve any particular problem, right? Because it's the military mindset. 1 is none, 2 is 1, right? You got to have backups. But
one of the reasons migration corridors matter so much is exactly that, because with global warming, you got to give like territories that plants and animals were once able to live in. They got to move north. Everything's moving right. Everything's moving farther from the equator, and you have to give. If we want to prepare for a world that's even if like 1.5 degrees warming, let's say we cap it where we're aiming to cap it, that's still going to be a massive shift, and you're either going to have massive extinction events or you're going to create a path to protect the plants and animals from what's coming.
Yeah.
You
have to. You also have to hunt like animals, and not like if we continue to rely on factory farming and shit like that and factory meat processing, we're going to be fucked. Like
no, I think we're moving to an entirely, by 2030, cultured beef, meaning steak grown from stem cells.
Yeah.
Which already, like in blind taste tests with even like Michelin starred chefs, you can't tell the difference, right? It's a cost problem now.
Yeah.
And by 2030, we're cost competitive with regular meat. So, and from that point forward, you're going to see boutique ranching, hunting, but I think, like large scale cattle operations and the stuff that we see now, we need land. Like we got to give it back to the plants and animals, and we need land for, different kinds of agriculture. We aren't going to need it for beef. And it's interesting talking to, I live in cattle country a little bit, and these are the friends of mine work in cattle. Like it's not an unfamiliar business to me. And I've been a big advocate for cultured beef and in vitro beef for a very long time. I've written about it in a lot of my books. And it's really important to me for this reason, because it liberates land that we can give back to plants and animals.
Yeah, I just had the Impossible Burger about 2 weeks ago. That was the first time I'd ever had it, and I didn't know I was eating it, and I was like, holy shit, this is tasty. And then somebody tapped me on the shoulder. You know what that is, right? It's the Impossible Burger. And I was like, no shit. Because they've been sold out forever, that, meat, or I don't know. Are they calling
Beyond
it
meat? That's Beyond Meat, or it's Impossible Meats and Beyond Meat. There's two major contenders right now.
Yeah, but it's hard to get. I've tried to get a hold of it in the past. I remember when Burger King did it, and they were gone, and then it just kind of never really popped up again.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the problems with that is just the last 2 years with people not working in factories, and all this stuff is super processed, which is another issue that the stem cell version of it is going to present a much better option. Right now, the Impossible and Beyond Meat is very similar to soy. A lot has to be done to it to make it palatable and shit like that.
And it's not carbon neutral yet.
Yeah, and it's not carbon neutral.
And if it's not carbon neutral, you gotta the meat problem. You gotta if you're gonna solve the meat problem, you gotta like the cruelty in animals, the cruelty in factory farming, all that stuff, plus the you want it deprocessed. But the cool thing, by the way, of cultured beef is you can grow it any way you want. Right? We can start making hamburgers that are good for us, that have high in fish oil. You know what I mean? Like you can start fortifying them fortifying beef, like from the stem cell level in really interesting ways.
Yeah, and that's a lot better than having to add like 45 ingredients to some like a mix of vegetables to make it look, taste, whatever. Like
I was just
meat,
going to say, so when I got home, I told my wife about it, and she said, did you look at the back of the package? And I was like, no, why? And she goes, well, there's like 350 things on that goddamn shit to make it even taste remotely near meat. Because it looked like real blood. You know, it looked like blood inside the meat and everything else. And I was shocked by it.
No, we need to start we need to pay more attention to the way that natives to places that European culture wasn't before, how they behaved, right? Because there's a symbiosis with whatever region you're living in. And for example, here in Texas, as climates change and as certain species get introduced to this area, like wild hogs here are out of control. I think the last stat I saw is that you could kill 20,000 of them a day in Texas, and you still wouldn't make a dent in their population.
Yeah.
Like that is nature presenting a solution to a problem right there, though, isn't it? Like just go shoot those motherfuckers and eat them.
Look, they let you come and shoot them for free. I don't know if you've been down to Texas, but there's services they'll take you up in a helicopter and let you shoot these things for free.
But human ingenuity is also one of those things. Like people are like, oh, humans contribute to this and contribute to that. Yeah, that's true, but we're part of the environment as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And if we're not like, we're beyond the place in evolution where it's random mutation solving things, and now it's like a sentient mind coming up with solutions to it. That's a lot different. Those solutions need to be good ones that last a long time. You know what I mean? Otherwise, we're all fucked.
Yeah, and do you buy what Bill Gates is doing with the meat? Have you looked into that, Steven?
No, why don't we throw a little more meat around what you're saying? Tell me what you're talking about. Maybe I will know.
They did a whole special on 60 Minutes with it, and he's trying to change the meat game forever as well. And he's got, I think, he was calling them labs, which is not a great thing for meat, but he's got 2 labs that are developing this special meat that's supposed to be good for the atmosphere and everything else. And that's allegedly why he's buying up all of this farmland. Bob, do you know the name of it? Look up Bill Gates' meat.
I don't know.
Those are lands where he will be farming and molesting children.
Now that Epstein Island is shut, he's got to find his own land.
Children farming is interesting. I didn't know you could grow those from seed. I thought you needed a better incubation system. It's interesting that we can just grow it from seed now.
I think
it's called synthetic beef, and that's what he's working on right now.
Yeah, I mean it's cultured beef in vitro. They change. There's a new name every, 4 months basically. When I started covering the topic, in vitro meat was the first thing we were calling it. Then it was cultured beef. I like lab-grown beef or hoof-grown beef because that gives you hoof-grown is the real thing. Lab-grown, you just know what the division is there.
Yeah, so he says he wants all rich countries to move to 100% synthetic beef. And that will help the planet, apparently.
It might. I don't know.
Oh, it'd be huge.
I'm not sure.
That would be huge.
Do you think
It'd be amazing.
All the studies over the last 10 years that were finally done on the vitamin market showed that, for the most part, none of that shit really works, right? Rogan's had a few guys on to talk about it as well. Not that that's the end all, but it's one of the things is if you don't have fat carriers taking that vitamin into your body, chances are you're not going to absorb it in the right way or get stripped off. Or there's a bunch of different things that can happen. Does it concern you at all from the research you've done that this lab-grown meat doesn't necessarily mirror the same process from beginning to end?
No. I mean, what you're talking about with vitamins is. But this is an issue with CBD, for example. And I'm on the board of OD'd Energetics, which is a CBD company. And one of the reasons they have some of the best science out, their CBD is nano-encapsulated inside of lipids, aka fats, right? So this is not a hard technology. You're just saying, can you put lipids in cultured beef? Well, of course you can.
Right.
Those kinds of things are really, food is a really good delivery system of this stuff.
Yeah,
you can put
way better than like a ground up pill or some bullshit like that. Way better, yeah, for sure.
Seems to be.
Yeah. So, that's the challenge then, I guess, is introducing the right kind of vitamin structure to, I mean, you would want it to be something that mirrors the natural beef though, right? So if it's just like ground beef or steak or something like that, there's a marginal amount of that stuff anyways, unless you're eating organ meat, right?
Yes, but I think you can change the nutritional profile of regular meat without. It's interesting. So you're asking really great questions, and before I answer that, I don't think it's going to be an issue. But let me just stop and say I don't fucking know. You're asking really good questions, and I'm sort of nodding along, and I'm thinking, yes, I don't think this is going to be an issue. But before I talk out of my butt, let me just stop and say I don't actually know.
We'll do that.
So everything I'm going to say after this is just a freaking guess.
We'll do that on the next show. We'll cover all the meat on the next show. That's the book you got to write. You got to go kidnap Bill Gates and write about meat.
Yeah, are you close to Vegas at all then? If you're in Nevada?
He's north.
I am not. I'm in northern Nevada. I'm 8 hours away.
Jesus Christ. I didn't know Nevada was that big that you could
Nevada
be
is
8 hours
giant.
away.
A couple things you don't know. Nevada also is the most mountainous state in America, which nobody knows.
No, I knew that because I'm smarter than you. But
You didn't even know that Nevada had a north.
Damn.
No, I didn't. Yeah, next time we're there, I want to see what you're like in Vegas. I bet you fucking rage.
That'll be an interesting thing. I have had. I'm not I don't gamble. I don't there's a lot of Vegas stuff that I'm not particularly interested in, but are you asking if I can party really hard occasionally?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking,
I can
Steven.
party really hard occasionally.
Let's go, dude. I can see, outside of being live on YouTube and all that stuff, I think deep down within, we could get you to absolutely fucking rage. Maybe share an 8-ball together and figure life out in Vegas for a weekend. You have that look, and I can hear the tone in your voice of I used to back in the day. I have a feeling it was probably half a Bourdain inside of you, Not heroin, but I bet you did some other shit.
Did do heroin a couple times. I'll try anything twice. Heroin's boring. I thought heroin was I was like, well, I did it the first time accidentally, and then I did it a second time because I couldn't believe the first time was so boring. And I was like, really? And I've had friends who have had really tough wrestling matches with heroin, and I've seen it really fuck up some lives. But in my case, I was like, this is really boring. I don't understand why people would want to do this.
That's interesting, because there's so many people that love it and are hooked on it and are just like, oh my God, it's my end-all be-all drug.
Yeah, but if you've got a lot of experience with psychotropic drugs, I mean, I can't imagine just a simple downer is going to have that big of an effect on you.
Maybe, yeah. Have you ever tried it?
Heroin, no.
Yeah, me neither.
I would, if somebody offered me that or ketamine, I would take ketamine every single time.
Yeah, look, ketamine.
Ketamine's definitely more interesting than heroin.
Yeah, big time.
Though I'm not a ketamine. Funny ketamine story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Fire away.
I shattered this collarbone mountain biking.
On ketamine?
And they take me to the emergency room in Los Alamos, actually, where they built the bomb, the atomic bomb, right? And because that was the closest. And I'm a genetic mutant, my mom too, where I'm much less reactive to all opiates. So when I was in the emergency room, I was like, look, you guys can't give me morphine or fentanyl, whatever. You're not gonna cut the pain. And they very quickly they were like, well, we've given you all we can't give you any more anything. And the surgeon can't see you for 2 more hours because he's in the, and I was like, they were like, so would you like some ketamine? And I had done ketamine, maybe I was 30 years old at Burning Man. A very long time ago, in 1999, and hadn't done it since. And I said, sure, I remember it. It was fine. Whatever. I've just been in freaking a terrible amount of pain for 7 hours. So yes, anything we can do to less pain. So the nurse goes and comes back with the injection of the ketamine, goes right into the IV. And as she's injecting it, I see her eyes go wide, something just went wrong. And immediately she leaves the room and comes back with the guy who they have on staff to talk down people who have come in overdosed on drugs. And it's his job to calm them the fuck down. I got accidentally overdosed on ketamine in the emergency room. So the guy she goes to get is this crazy long-haired hippie dude who looks like poor man's Charles Manson. And they start talking about alien abductions. So I'm in the emergency room, overdosed on ketamine. And every time I come, once every 5 minutes, I sort of pop back into reality, grab the nurse and go, I'm dead, right? And she goes, no, you're not dead. You've had an accident. You're in the hospital, and we appear to have given you too much ketamine. And I'm like, I'm not dead. You did this to me? And then I would disappear again. Like 5 minutes later, I would like wake up and grab her. But like every time as I was like coming back to reality, I would see this like Manson lookalike fucker talking about alien abductions with the nurse. So like, it's like Jacob's Ladder in the real world. Like I'm in an emergency room. These guys I was just like, this is just not fair. This is just not like, you guys should have better bedside. Like if you're going to accidentally overdose somebody on ketamine, you should at least hold the dude's hand or something.
Do something cool.
Yeah.
You know, the first time I ever did ketamine, I went into a deep K-hole and a lazy boy with The Matrix on. Okay, which is the first time I'd ever seen The Matrix. It was the first, like it had just come out on VHS or some shit or DVD. Sure. And we went and bought it at Walmart and then came home like, hey, you know what we should do is fucking take a bunch of ketamine and watch it. That turned out to be a great idea, actually. I really enjoyed that experience. But you would think that they would be able to, I mean, it's the usual, there's a very typical dose for ketamine, right? I mean, it's like 0.3 for mood and then 0.6, I think, for pain. Like when my stepkid broke his arm last summer, that's the first thing they gave him is ketamine when he got into the emergency room now.
And by the way, I've since had a bunch of, I broke my back last summer, and I treated a lot of it with stem cells and regenerative medicine. And
did you go to Germany?
No, I
Panama?
No, I didn't. I went to Dr. Matt Cook, San Jose, California, and Matt's great, and he was amazing. But some of it had to go right into my spine. Oof. And Matt's trained as an anesthesiologist, thank God. So he knocked me out on ketamine. And when you have somebody who knows what they're doing, it's fantastic. Yeah. When it's the clown show, it can be pretty unpleasant.
Yeah, there's clinics actually popping up all over
for depression.
It's awesome.
Yeah, they've had really good success with depression and addiction. You know, I mean, by the way, there were studies a lot of stuff in Russia, but a bunch of stuff in America in the 60s about ketamine for addiction. This is like the research isn't all that new. It's been around for this stuff for a while, but you know, our approach to psychopharmaceuticals has shifted.
Oh yeah. I mean, most of the CBD research we had before the early 2000s came from Israel in the 1950s. I mean, that's where most of the early work was done on, all cannabinoids.
Well, not 50s. I mean, what's his name? Meshulam, the guy who found the THC molecule, right? That was starting in the 70s, but most of that work was done in the 90s.
Well, they were doing research on weed in like in 55. Maybe it wasn't.
That I believe. But they never really stopped. Is the point?
No, they never did. No, actually, when I was a kid, I read a study in the Jerusalem University publication about using LSD to treat autism. I think it was a 1954 journal or something like that.
That's crazy early.
The same time that the American government was just giving it to random scientists who then jumped out of windows, the Israelis were actually trying to use it for good. You know what I mean?
It's funny. I always tell people that, you know, because I've been covering psychedelic research, you know, even as a journalist since the early 90s. So I've had sort of a front row seat for a long time as it came of age. And everything until really Robert Card Harris's lab at Imperial College in London, who started doing different stuff, I really said that most of the psychedelic research that has happened so far, we're just redoing shit that was done in the 60s because we don't trust those goddamn hippies, right? That's really essentially what has happened is like, well, we don't trust the hippies, so let's spend a decade redoing all that research to prove once again for the 17th time or whatever that these things are beneficial. And to me, I'm glad it's happening because I'm glad we're moving that bar forward. But a part of me is like, wow, these tools are really effective at treating a lot of suffering.
Right.
And, it'd be really fun to get we teamed up with Robin Card-Harris's lab at the Flow Research Collective and did a comparison contrast study between psychedelics and flow for various problem solving, what's better for this problem, what are better, that sort of stuff. And that to me is the kind of research, that's what the future is like. Okay, you've got a problem to solve. What's the best tool? Do you want a psychedelic? Do you want flow? Do you want a trance meditative protocol, some combination? That's where we're going. And that's where it's starting to get interesting. But so much of the work that's already done is just to reprove everything so we can, hold conservatives' hands in government. And it's stupid. I mean, the fact that we're still having discussions about MDMA and PTSD when you've got how many veterans who are suffering, this is just dumb.
It's really stupid. But this is something
even down to weed. I mean, that's not going to pass either.
That's always been dumb. But it's this happens not just with medical treatments or anything else, but with all societal problems in the West. What we get so used to the solution to a problem that we forget the problem that it solved in the first place, and then we boycott the solution for some reason and then re-experience the problem all over again, and they're like, oh, we're fucking stupid. And that's why what you guys do, yourself and all the people that write stuff like this, is so important, because you're not just finding solutions in flow and pharmaceuticals, or I guess if you want to call it that, it's technically just natural solutions things, but you're not just finding solutions, you're documenting the process so that people can be reminded later on, hey, this was a big fucking problem and here's how we solved it. I think that's as important as solving it in the first place.
It's just you go back to the early research on ibogaine for addiction, right? It's the 50s and 60s, and for heroin addiction. And it, by the 80s, I think we figured out that ibogaine actually makes your downregulates your opiate receptors, so you crave it less. Maybe that's the early 90s. But how many junkies do you think have been suffering since we've known this worked really, really, really well, so much better than methadone?
Yeah. I mean, we just went through 40 years of unadulterated opioid abuse, basically caused by over-prescribing and the American pharmaceutical industry, to be frank. And it's not just them, the VA. Not just the VA, but the active military medical situation was that if you got some pain, here's some pills. You know what I mean? That was the end of it.
The other thing, I have watched so many of my veteran friends, especially when I was living in New Mexico in a much more rural, poor community, get procedure after procedure after procedure after procedure after procedure, as if surgery was the cure for surgery, as the cure for surgery.
Right.
There are decisions that get made in the VA that boggle my mind.
Yeah, they boggle mine too.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
It's not a matter of money or manpower. I'll say that, because they've got plenty of funding and they have plenty of employees. But it's the process through which people go to decide to move on from limb salvage and get a nice prosthetic that can actually make them active as a human being again, which has so many downstream effects, from mood to overall health, just to be able to get up and move around and not be sitting somewhere all the time, right? But it's like a 4-year fucking process to get that done, man. 4 years of your life. That's 5% of your life.
The other thing that's stupid about it is we can 3D print really viable prosthetics. You know what I mean? My buddy Scott Stummett started playing with that stuff back before I wrote Abundance. So 2008, 2009, you started to see really good 3D printable stuff. And I understand if you're dealing with Dean Kamen's technology and, that we're a little bit further, but yeah, man, you can't 4 years to wait for a limb.
Yeah. Well, it's not, it's the getting the limb part is probably a little bit easier, but it's the process from which, you have a leg technically, but your knee's fused or it doesn't bend correctly or your foot's fucked up or something like that. And yeah, I mean, then
Then it's the fit of it.
Then-
White
yeah.
is a buddy of ours, and he talks about it all the time. And he's just like, dude, it's a constant struggle.
Nobody's come up with a very elegant solution for it because, look, especially somebody like him that's super active and like your body composition, anytime your muscle composition changes in that leg, then your fitting is fucked for that leg, right? And now you've got a big problem. Yeah, it's like, so let's say.
So in other words, you lose 10 pounds because you get sick, or you gain 10 pounds of muscle. You've got a fit problem.
Yeah, now your socket doesn't fit right, and it
no
rubs
shit.
on it constantly.
Oh wow, that's a whole other level of because I'm stupid. I didn't think about that, but I can.
Well, you wouldn't think
we're here. We're here today.
You wouldn't think about it unless you were trying to hop around on a peg all day like they are, right?
I know. And until he explained it to us, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I just never thought about it.
Yeah. Dude, we could talk for hours. You're like one of our favorite guests to come on the show. Now's the point in this show where we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
Oh, I'm actually going to give it to the guy we talked about earlier, Michael Soule, father of conservation biology. Totally, like if you care about the environment, chances are the things that you're putting into place are things that this guy dreamed up back in the 70s. So yeah, Michael Soule, super inspirational dude. And he's where I start.
Awesome. The book is The Devil's Dictionary. It is available for pre-order right now. Comes out next Tuesday. All these pre-orders, get it in hardback. That's what helps get you on the New York Times bestseller list. The fastest, because they've got their own separate segment for that. And I'm looking at it now. It says you're already the editor's pick on Amazon. Did you know that?
I do know that they're running a special. Everybody was really excited about that.
Yeah, that's really hard to get. How did that come about?
Bribes, mostly.
Blackmail.
I kidnapped their children, and I'm sorry. What was the question?
Yeah, because let me know who that is, and there's some money I'd like to slide their way for the next one. Just go ahead and pass that info on to me after the show. Steven Kotler, it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for being here today.
Always pleasure to hang with you guys.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Awesome. For D'Anthony
Enjoy your
Holloway,
afternoon.
we will. I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros